Good morning, Kunal.
Good morning.
Thank you for making time to chat with us on Chat Over Chai.
Sure.
Yeah. So, how have you been?
Good for a weekend. Good for a
Uh huh.
weekend. It
Uh huh.
was Raksha Bandhan yesterday, so we had a quick get together at our friend's house. So it's been different lifestyles sitting here with all
Yes.
lockdown and everything else. So
Uh huh.
the normal life has been disrupted, but we make the best out of it.
Yes. 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 So, how was your celebrations?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah.
We are self quarantining with a couple of
Uh
friends
huh.
as such.
Uh
So
huh.
they usually meet
Right.
with them only as such. But
Uh,
it's been good. It's been good. The whole life is so different. Everyone has been trying to adopt to a new lifestyle that the functions, the family normal family affairs seem very different nowadays.
mhm. Yes. 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 So, how are you liking it? What do you think of it?
Oh, you mean the whole lockdown situation?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's a different aspect of each of our lives, I would say. When the initial lockdown started sometime in March, we thought it would be for a couple of months. So we said, you know what, why don't we just bear through it and get through the next 2 3 months as such. But as the COVID situation has evolved, and especially in US and same thing in India, right?
Mhm.
People are taking it a little bit more seriously here.
Yes.
It's every day a brand new day. The one thing
Mhm.
I do miss, personally speaking, is being on the road, meeting the
Mhm.
clients. I get my energy from face to face interactions with all of our colleagues, meeting all the clients, seeing the excitement in their face. That's one thing I miss as
Uh
such.
huh.
But the another good thing is staying home, getting a lot of me time with Anushka and
Yes.
Aarti.
Uh
Aarti,
huh.
obviously, I get a lot of me time anyways, as such.
Yeah.
But with Anushka, essentially spending time is has been a boon quite a bit. We catch up on
Yes.
a lot of movies. We have seen every single movie
Awesome.
from
Uh huh.
from all of the recent movies to all of the Amitabh Bachchan movies. And I started to show,
Yes.
show her some Govinda movies also. Anushka is a big filmy person, just like me,
Uh-huh.
as such.
Oh,
So
okay.
we bond over films quite a bit, as such.
Super.
And
Okay.
she's grown up to be she's almost 16 now. So it's a different, I would say, lifestyle as compared to
Yeah.
our normal day-to-day machinations.
Yes. 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 So, we actually reached out to a lot of exactians. In fact, all exactians, and just asked them if they had any questions for you. And we got so many questions. And so the list of questions that I will be asking you are entirely from exactians. So you said that you get all your energy from meeting clients. So one of our questions here is about all the energy that you have. So it says here, where do you get all your energy from, and how are you always so jovial?
um, our business is completely relationship based. And not only just our business, I would say all of the human connections that we make is completely relationship based. I am a
Mhm.
person who has essentially always made the time to know the other person I am talking to, or just try to connect on a human personal level. I would say
Mhm.
most of the times when I am out in the field and talking to my clients, essentially, I try to ensure that they always have a smile on their face after meeting me, right? That's one thing that
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
always learned. One of my biggest
Uh-huh.
mentors in my life has always taught
Uh-huh.
me that you should always leave the other person that you meet with a smile on their face when you leave that room or you leave that conversation. So I always thought in the back of my mind,
Yeah.
how can I, always make my all of my interactions meaningful and always
Yes.
leave a conversation with a smile on their face. So um, I drive the energy by a lot through a lot of people interactions. Right now, everything is over the phone or a video
Mhm.
chat. But what really drives me is essentially that one-to-one connection that I'm able to make to a person. The power of looking
Mhm.
the someone else in their eye and making that
Mhm.
connection, and it's essentially saying, you know what, you're not only just buying a software, but essentially a lifelong relationship with Exact as a company is
Right.
something that really drives me. Even from a
Right.
personal perspective, I'm surrounded by in India when I was growing up, I was surrounded by a lot of friends who were jovial in nature, right? As such, so
Uh-huh.
I think some of that nature rubbed off on me. As such, we never
Okay.
used to take life seriously when we were
Uh-huh.
growing up, and so even when I would say, anecdotally, for example, in my summers when I was growing up, and Anushka hates this when I tell her this story. When I was growing up over the summer, I used to spend most of my summers in Mumbai when I was
Uh-huh.
with my granny, and
Uh-huh.
she was one a jovial person herself, and she used to always teach me, don't take life seriously, take it
Uh-huh.
one day at a time, and always,
Uh-huh.
essentially make sure that you are able to make that connection with the other person. So I guess I've carried that forward as I've grown up in my life.
Right.
It is always good to essentially see a lot of smiling faces around yourself, right?
Yes.
And that's what
Uh-huh.
helps
Uh-huh.
me also continue the conversation.
Oh, amazing, amazing. I think that's excellent advice from your grandmother as well as your mentor. Now, there's another superpower you have in addition to always being jovial and energetic, and that is convincing people. So here's another question. How are you so good at convincing people?
All right, I'm going to tell you a personal story here, and Mayuri
Sure.
probably will kill me for this. I when convincing people. For those who know me, I spent 15 years of my life, work life, in Deloitte as such, and a lot of my career was essentially focused on essentially going out and essentially presenting the best foot forward of that firm to other clients. So that firm actually has taught me how to connect with people, how to be more empathetic, and essentially how to make that human connection to convince
Right.
people, whether it be work or family
Hmm.
as such. Funny
Hmm.
story, right? Aarti and I got married at 21 itself. Uh,
Wow.
for those who don't know, at 21, I was able to convince Aarti to marry me. So at that point of time, I think I knew I had that convincing power in me. If I can convince Aarti to marry
Yeah.
me at that point of time, it helped me move forward in life. But I think all jokes apart,
Uh-huh.
having spent time in Deloitte, and essentially,
Uh-huh.
the first question ties to this question also is how do you have that, how do you command a room, how do you essentially have
Mhm.
that presence so that you're able to convince people and essentially make sure that that at the end of the day they don't buy our software, they buy the human
Mhm.
relationships. Even when you have,
Mhm.
if you are listening to this conversation, if you are a support person in Baroda or a developer in Pune, right, or a hub lead anywhere else, what really drives our company and what really helps us is essentially the connections that you guys make over emails,
Mhm.
over a phone call, over a text, anything else
Mhm.
such as that, right? So the power of connection is huge.
Mhm.
Unlike Aarti, I am not a big person who reads books or reads a lot of or listens to a lot of podcasts. However, I have
Mhm.
a lot of good mentors in life as such, right?
Right.
And who really have helped me understand the power of connection and essentially how do
Uh-huh.
you make it more, instead of being making it more of a business transaction, how do you make it more of a people transaction?
Right. Right. Oh, awesome. Yeah. So yes, you are jovial. You have an amazing power to convince people, but there are probably times when people have been unhappy. So what do you do when clients are unhappy, for example?
Yeah, it's a great question. In my role, I've had to actually work with a lot of those, situations. I think the first thing I would do is listen. The power of listening is quite underestimated. I would say
Yes.
a lot of the clients want to be heard and want to be listened to. So the first thing I do is when a client approaches me is I listen to them and see what's going on as such. Um, Once I listen to them, I'm able to articulate and really figure out what their issue is. Sometimes the issue might be related to the system. Sometimes the issue might be, what, someone has not contacted me in X, Y, and Z. Sometimes the
Mhm.
issue might be totally unrelated to exact and something else might be spilling over. So
Right.
once you have listened to the client, you essentially figure out how do you work with them at the end of the day, right? Every time a client comes to me and said, Kunal, X, Y, and Z is not working, once I've
Mhm.
listened to them, I'm able to say, look, based on my discussion with you, it seems like you have X, Y, and Z problem. And then again, being very honest with them in terms of things that you can work with them on, things you cannot work with them on, and giving them an honest opinion and honest answer about how we are able to essentially solve that issue for. The other thing I think the clients really like is when they present an issue to us is how have other people essentially figured out the same issue. as such. So what I typically try to do is provide examples to them, saying you might be looking at this as a problem, but if you flip it around, it actually might turn into an opportunity for you
Right.
as such, right? So I always try to show them options and alternatives to the issues that they bring to bear. The other thing that I'm incredibly blessed with is a great sense of folks who help me from Baroda and Pune as such,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I usually, whenever a client, there's a difficult client, I usually call up the team, support team, Basant or any of the hub leads or Mugendra and say,
Mm-hmm.
hey guys, we have this problem, or even the US team to that matter, right? For the
Right.
matter, I say, hey, how should we go about solving this situation? Um, as we have grown within Exact, I have
Mm-hmm.
actually personally, I'm starting to take a step back and say, how do I empower the people around me so that they're
Right.
able to solve these problems independently of their own? And that's something I have had to learn myself, because when in 2016 I joined Exact, we were a small company at that point of time. And a lot of those escalations used to directly come to me, and I
Mm-hmm.
used to handle them one on one. I used to be able to talk directly to a support agent in Baroda and say, hey, can we just get this done this way? As we have increased the team size, I actually had to purposefully take a step back and say, why don't we let the team take a first stab at essentially solving this problem? And then if they
Mm-hmm.
have a further issue, then essentially they can contact me as such. But again, the power of listening and the
Mm-hmm.
power of telling the client saying, hey, this is how other folks have approached it, I think is really the differentiation in my mind.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's great advice. Um, Listening, I believe, like you said, is definitely important and largely underestimated. So you can be very objective when it's your client. What about when it's your spouse and when you have disagreements with Arti?
Um, all right, that's a tough one. Um, when you have a wife who's also your CEO, professionally
Uh-huh.
and personally, the
Hmm.
equation changes quite a bit as such.
Yes. Hmm.
Um, Happy wife, happy life. I've tried to follow that rule as such.
Uh-huh.
However, we have a very healthy relationship when we
Hmm.
have disagreements. I think both
Hmm.
of us have a healthy and a mutual respect for each other as such.
Hmm.
Aarti and I have known each other for about 25 years now. I met her in
Wow.
96.
Uh-huh.
Um, she does have a very strong personality. I knew that when I met her in 1996, and I've
Uh-huh.
grown to essentially adapt around
Uh-huh.
that.
Uh-huh.
She is immensely talented. She's
Hmm.
super smart woman.
Yes.
So
Uh-huh.
essentially, you have to be able to leverage her strengths and figure
Uh-huh.
out how do you add your qualities to essentially complete her as a
Right.
person as such.
Hmm. Hmm.
She does a lot of things professionally and personally. She has actually had to manage the household, Anushka,
Yes.
and her professional life. And I've seen that struggle. That struggle
Uh-huh.
is real across the
Yes.
board as such.
Uh-huh.
So whenever we do have disagreements, sometimes those
Hmm.
disagreements are very vocal on call. So
Hmm.
for the Pune team or even for the Baroda team, you guys would have
Yes.
listened to me and Aarti sometimes quarrel over phone also, right? But that's
Right.
again, that's a very professional way of looking at things.
Right.
At the end of the day, we always go back and say, hey guys, what worked well, what can we do better, essentially in
Right.
the next conversation. Even
Right.
when in the last few years, when some things were slipping or I had a very different point of view, she and I
Hmm.
always talked it out
Right.
again and
Hmm.
said, how do we come to a mutual consensus? you know uh,
Hmm.
it, it, I would say relationships is always about give and take as such.
Correct.
You give
Right.
some, you take some, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Aarti is a big time giver, I would
Right.
say. uh,
Yes.
uh, However, what I bring to bear is essentially my corporate experience as such. So
Uh-huh.
sometimes, you know because she was at USC, she does not have the corporate experience. I always try
Hmm.
to tell her, hey, this is how I have seen other folks approach the situation in this way. So we always have a discussion about it,
Hmm.
again, and come to a common ground as such.
Right. Right. Awesome. And so you have disagreements, you have agreements. So the next question leads up to that. If there's one thing that you could change about Exact in this current situation, what would that be?
If I could change anything about Exact in this current situation, I think. institutionalizing happy hours across exact.
Okay.
I would say that
Nice.
is something. That is something. So first of all, I do miss connecting with all of the folks face to face as
Uh-huh.
such, and having
Uh-huh.
that discussion and as talking to a person across each other and saying, hey guys, what's working for you, what's not working for you. I do
Hmm.
miss that connection,
Right.
face to face. I think though, as a team, what we
Hmm.
continue to need to do in this situation is essentially
Hmm.
give time outside
Hmm.
work to each other, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Work is always going to be there 24/7, whether it be a deployment or a support ticket or a client who is irritated at the lack of our response time, and that
Hmm.
situation
Hmm.
always happens, right? But when
Right.
you are in a team setting, when you essentially are there for each other, I think one of the things that we need to continue to do is essentially have a way to continue to have meaningful bonds with each other just outside work,
Right.
right? For example,
Absolutely.
with this step up challenge that we are doing right now, I think
Right.
it's a great way for the team to get engaged. As such, a lot of the companies on the US side are essentially
Uh-huh.
having Zoom happy hours. So I'm
Wow.
going to
Okay.
try in the month of August have at least every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks a Zoom happy hour with the US team, as such.
Awesome.
So
Uh-huh.
that's something that I would want Exact to start doing. I think
Uh-huh.
the one thing I'm really happy about is when we made the decision to work from home,
Hmm.
everyone's life was thrown in disarray, right? Some had a good
Right.
internet connection, some live in essentially joint families where
Hmm.
trying to work from home is not the most ideal setup, but everybody
Right.
everybody took that in stride and everybody made
Right.
the best out of what was given or presented to them. um,
Hmm.
in this situation, a lot of the discussion also, I think, focuses on mental health, I would say.
Right.
And that's a
Right.
very neglected part of
Uh-huh.
essentially the work that we do, right? When
Correct.
you are at office, you essentially at least get time to unplug, connect
Yes.
with your colleagues, at least sit in the break rooms. And that's more true for India than US right now. I
Right.
agree with that, right? But even in US, we at least made an attempt to call the folks for a retreat every few months and get
Correct.
together. When you're sitting at home, that
Hmm.
line between professional and personal does not exist anymore, and sometimes
Hmm.
that and from a personal perspective, that takes a toll on you, right? So I
Right.
would that's something I'm really trying to understand is how do we essentially ensure that each of our employees starts to feel a sense of essentially protected time, where all
Right.
they can do is just spend time with family, even though we cannot go out anywhere, just going out in
Hmm.
your backyard and essentially
Hmm.
having a discussion with your spouse or your kid and say how did their day go, right? When you're essentially
Correct.
in a situation where you get a call from your lead at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., you still are in this work
Hmm.
situation as such. And
Hmm.
I am
Hmm.
myself guilty of that, right? A lot of the folks have come up to me and said, Kunal, you continue to work 24/7. Why do you do that,
Right.
right? And when
Uh-huh.
you are
Uh-huh.
at the leadership level, a lot of folks look up
Right.
to you and essentially say, hey, this person is working 24/7, so I need to do that. And
Hmm.
through this video call, at least I'm trying to tell you, everyone here is, I realize that sometimes I have not been the best role model myself, and I'm trying to
Uh-huh.
change that also. And
Right.
especially this lockdown, you guys all need
Uh-huh.
to essentially make time for yourself, right? So
Right.
that's one thing I really wish that Exact starts to do is start to
Uh-huh.
focus on initiatives and how to give people more of that personal space so that personal and
Yes.
professional don't intermingle with each other.
Right. I think you bring out a very, very important point about, taking time out for yourself and, being mentally healthy as well. So, what do you generally do when you're not working?
So as I said, I'm a big movie buff. As such,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
my number one guilty pleasure is watching movies itself, and eating food. I would say nowadays I've
Okay.
taken to working out also quite
Uh-huh.
a bit and
Uh-huh.
focusing on my health.
Uh-huh.
So those are the three things: is I watch movies, I listen to
Uh-huh.
music, I eat good food, and then I work
Uh-huh.
out. Four things is
Awesome.
what keeps me going every single
Yes.
day.
Awesome. Cool. I think, yeah. And what kind of movies do you enjoy? What genre?
anything and everything. For those who
Everything.
don't
Okay.
know me, I'm a big Amitabh Bachchan and a Govinda
Uh-huh.
fan. So when I was growing up, I used to watch all Amitabh Bachchan movies. As such,
Uh-huh.
with the
Uh-huh.
advent of OTT platforms, we have Amazon Prime, we have
Mhm.
Netflix.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of choices on our hands, right? As such, so I tend to just start up any new movie. And so, the
Uh-huh.
one thing I found is nowadays I don't have the stamina or to watch a 3 hour movie. So I always
Oh.
essentially have to start a movie,
Uh-huh.
stop it after 30 minutes and come back to it as such.
Oh, really?
I
Oh,
just
okay.
don't have the
Oh.
concentration power for 3 hours as such. Oh, and the biggest thing I forgot, spend time with Leo. Um,
Oh,
as such,
yes.
yeah, we
Uh-huh.
just we got a new dog in our life last
Mhm.
September. And
Mhm.
funny story, I used to be always afraid of dogs.
Oh,
And
really?
Anushka, when we moved from LA to New Jersey, Anushka made a
Uh-huh.
pact with Arti saying that, hey, if we do move to New Jersey, get me a
Mhm.
dog, right? To help me
Mhm.
really get someone to have in my room or have this constant companion. And I was
Right.
afraid of dogs when I was growing up. So even while
Right.
going to the airport to pick up Leo, I was
Uh-huh.
telling Anushka, "Are we really sure we want to do this?" As such, and now I've fallen in love with Leo, and that's, I mean,
Oh,
I take him out on walks as such. That's one thing that we do consistently every single try to do every single day is go out for walks in our neighborhood as such. It's a nice 2-3 mile loop, and we try to do that
nice.
every single day with Leo. He's the best thing that has happened to us in this lockdown. He gives us
Uh-huh.
immense love, and he's the one person we cannot, or one animal we cannot live without. All the three of us.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I'm a big dog lover, and there can be nothing better than, a dog in your life, I think. Yeah.
Love,
Pardon?
unconditional love. Forgive.
Unconditional love and so much joy. Yeah, yeah. So, growing up, you said you loved watching movies, Amitabh Bachchan movies and Govinda movies. Did you aspire to be a movie star then? What were your aspirations growing up?
I tell Arti that after my exact stint, I actually want to make a movie myself. I would
Oh,
say.
wow.
Uh, I would growing up. Every person has a different ambition at different points in
Mhm,
life. I would say.
mhm.
Growing up, I wanted to become a doctor
Oh,
itself.
wow. Okay. Mhm.
I wanted to help people. I wanted to become at some point in time. I wanted to become a lawyer also, right? And said,
Wow. Okay.
how can I essentially go in the becoming a lawyer? But in '96,
Uh-huh.
I had the choice to essentially when I was just passed out of my 12th grade. I had the
Mhm,
choice to essentially go in the medical field.
mhm,
There is a school in Karnataka
mhm,
that potentially I could have gone to, or I could
mhm,
have gone into the IT field at that point of time. My
mhm.
dad is really one person that really helped me think through and said, Kunal, computers, the age of internet is really coming upon us at this point of
Mhm.
time. And he used to read a lot about computers and internet, and he really forced me, hey, there is a new discipline or a stream of education coming up in Gujarat, where I used to study
Mhm.
information technology, IT. And he really
Mhm.
encouraged me to think about that. And that's how I got, really admitted into this IT field. I did not
Right.
have a computer before
Oh.
essentially I joined IT
Uh-huh.
as such. So he got me my first computer, an
Nice.
HP Compact in
Uh-huh.
'96 as such. And that's
Oh,
how I
wow.
got introduced to the world of computers. And I've been fascinated by that ever since then.
Yes.
Technology has the power to change
Uh-huh.
and disrupt so many lives as such.
Yes.
And in
Yes.
'96, Amazon at that point of time was just a brick, and was competing with Barnes and Nobles. And who
Okay.
knew that Amazon would be such a big entity in our lives at that point in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But technology really has played a huge impact for us. So growing up, at different points of time, one point in time I wanted to become a lawyer. One point in time I wanted to become a doctor itself, but
Uh-huh.
eventually I chose the field of IT, and I've never regretted that since.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, I remember our first computer was an HP Compaq as well, a very big, bulky model. And I think we got it around 95, 96 as well. So yeah, funny memories of,
One
using CDs and yeah.
the first computer I got, I actually disassembled the whole computer. I
Oh,
wanted to see what
wow.
exactly was in that CPU. They talk
Uh-huh.
about the motherboard and everything else. So I started to become a geek from that day at that point.
Yeah, yeah. No, I wouldn't have dared do that. I think my dad would have yeah, been absolutely upset with us.
My dad
But yeah.
actually got me a spare computer and he said, "Go at it, go do it."
Oh
so,
wow. So he
so
he
he,
probably anticipated something like that.
yeah, he knew how
Yeah.
destructive I was at that point of time. So he got me something else.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So you talked about a lot of people. You've talked about your grandmother, a mentor that taught you about communication. You've talked about your dad. Who did you really look up to? Who have you really looked up to as a role model?
I think a lot of people know about this already. I
Hmm.
really follow Elon Musk in my life, and
Yes.
I'll tell you why. I
Uh-huh.
think the guy is a creative genius. Although some of his personal tweets are not the best, but I think that guy
Hmm.
is a creative genius as such. He
Uh-huh.
has really tried to stretch our limits of imagination and see what the power of human endurance is. Whether it be
Hmm.
sticking it out with Tesla, or
Hmm.
essentially forming SpaceX, or really
Hmm.
having an ambition of forming the next human colony in Mars, right? I really look up to that guy.
Yeah.
His story is also very unusual. I
Right.
would say, growing up in South Africa, for those who haven't read his autobiography, you guys should take some time to read up on him. As such, his life is a completely, I would say, antithesis to a normal person's life, right? He has never lived by the rules, I would say. Um, but also, I think there are two things I would say. If you need anything on Earth, you need Jeff Bezos with Amazon. If you need anything outside Earth, it might be Elon Musk, right? Whether it be sending a Tesla into the space. That's one person I really look up to, because
Mhm.
when you think about influences and stretching the limits of what's possible itself, right?
Mhm.
He's a good role model for me.
Mhm.
As such,
Mhm.
now, keeping his political views aside or keeping everything else aside, right?
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
he really understands the power of technology. He really
Right.
understands how to essentially bring a group of very creative, talented people together and makes
Mhm.
something beautiful out of it.
Mhm.
The story of Tesla, for example, right?
Mhm.
They When he made his first electric car, no one would buy into that concept as
Right.
such, right? And he was losing millions of dollars every quarter,
Yes.
but he had that vision and he stuck
Mhm.
with it. As such,
Mhm.
he had that quality, and he always said, I want perfection in
Mhm.
everything that
Mhm.
I do, right? And that quote has really stuck with me as
Mhm.
such. Um, when you do something, you really want to be proud of the effort, and you really want to be proud of something that you bring to the market, right? And it's
Right.
very impactful. Even with Exact right now, and the new technology, and the new version we are bringing out there, right? There's a lot of pride that we take in the
Mhm.
kind of work that we do there.
Mhm.
Even with the existing version, we take a lot of pride in making sure that that's a system that essentially is adopted by such high power institutes in US, from John
Mhm.
Hopkins to Duke to
Mhm.
Stanford and stuff like that. As such, so having Elon as a role model helps me, because it allows me to say, never say stop, and
Right.
always continue to out innovate yourself, right? If you're
Mhm.
satisfied with where you are in your life, then you will stop growing. And that's something that
Right.
he has really helped me understand.
Right. Right. Thank you, Kunal. I think there's so many takeaways for me personally from your chat. So thank you for sharing your amazing story. I think one of the biggest thing for me, I think leaving people smiling. It's so beautiful, and I know you're so good at it. And also what you said about out innovating yourself. I think that's another powerful one that I will remember. So thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for answering those questions so articulately and with so much personal information as well. So now we come to the rapid fire round,
Sure.
and so I'll give you one word, and you need to tell me what you associate that word with.
Ooh. Uh,
Yes.
okay, let's do it.
Okay. Okay, let's start. Okay. So exact.
Innovator.
Awesome. Sales.
Fun.
ASAP.
Can't wait.
Bollywood.
Amitabh Bachchan.
School partners.
Uh, School clients.
Clients. Cohere.
Connect.
Exactians.
Family.
Shevpuri.
Can't get enough of it.
Anushka.
Love of my life.
Oh, awesome. Aarti.
The first love of my life.
Oh. Okay, now there's a phrase, a small phrase, and you have to answer that in one word as well. Your
Mhm.
favorite superhero.
My favorite superhero.
Mhm.
He-Man.
He-Man. If a movie was made on your life, what genre would that be?
It will be an out-and-out comedy.
Comedy. And who would you like to play in that movie?
On my life,
Uh-huh.
I would actually like to play my grandfather as
Your
such.
grandfather.
My
Okay.
grandfather.
This
He was
is,
a very powerful personality. But yeah, my grandfather.
yeah, awesome. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would that be and why?
Oh, without a doubt, Bora Bora. It's
Bora Bora, why?
one of my favorite places in the world. It's extremely beautiful, extremely quiet, extremely secluded as such, where you're able to detach from everything else in the world and just sit on the beach, sip margaritas, and just not stress about anything.
Awesome. What's the first item on your bucket list?
Oh, skydiving.
Skydiving, okay. Run, walk, yoga, or gym? Your favorite activity?
Uh, Gym.
Gym. Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Kunal. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Any,
Rashmi, for taking the time. And thank you, everyone, for
my
listening
pleasure.
in. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, guys. And thank you, Exatians. I know it's been a great pleasure of mine to continue to work with you guys every single day of my life. I
Uh-huh.
consider you guys as family. And I think, look forward to achieving amazing things with you all in the future.
Yes, and we are all looking forward to that as well. Thank you, Kunal, and have an awesome Sunday ahead.
Thanks, Rashmi. Appreciate the
All
time
right.
today.
Me too. Yeah. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.